He's alive! He's alive!
Yes, hello. Now, I want us together to solve a major problem, the biggest problem on the face of this earth right now. Now, trust me, because I've titled this 40 Days or 40 Years. Now, why do I say 40 days or 40 years? I want you to remember that the journey between was a journey that should have taken only 40 days. But somehow, the children of Israel wandered around for 40 years before they could conclude an assignment that was meant to take them 40 days. Now, if you heard that voice that I was watching the video, and this is the voice and the visuals, popular minister in Nigeria, one of the patriarchs of the Pentecostal church. His name was Benson Idahosa. Now here he's talking about there's a time when the World Council of Witches wanted to hold their first convention. 9,800 witches will come to Nigeria to have a meeting. Now, I was listening to that, and here he relates how he single-handedly stood up, no meetings, no consultations, cancelled the meetings, now with the chief host of the meeting for the World Council of Witches and Wizards. Now, that's the story of another day. You can find it on the internet. It's there. Benson Andrew Idahosa is his name. But that's not what interests me. What interests me is that I listened to another clip by this same man, a man of Africa, minister of the gospel. And in that clip, he solved a problem that is the greatest headache of the entire world today. And it also rhymes with the title of this discourse. Now, Benson Idahosa said in one of his tapes that he went to God one day and said to God, God, why did you make me a black man? I mean, this is bad, this is terrible, I have so life, and this and that. Why did you make me a black man? He said to God in prayer, an accusative prayer, and it was the response that God gave to him that shocked him and should shock us and should point the way to a solution that we could go looking for 40 years, but is available in 40 days. Now, it said God responded to his prayer and said to him, Benson Idahosa, I never knew that you were black. Then the coin dropped. It dawned on Benson Idahosa that God has never made a black man and God has never made any white man. The black and white color bar, and this is where it'd be good for us to make it. W.E.B. Du Bois, you should know him, the first African American who got a doctorate degree from Harvard University. He lived and died in Ghana towards the end of his days. It was W.E.B. Du Bois who said the color bar was the greatest problem of the last century. Now, if you read his book, Douglas's book, then Booker T. Washington's book, Up from Slavery, then you need to read this book called Black Grace by Tamedu who's also an African author. Now, what do you get from all these books? What you're going to find out is that Idahosa was right. Benson Idahosa found out, for the simple reason that there's a truth and a reality that comes from God that's different from the sub-realities that men have absorbed. The black-white color bar is a construct that was designed by Satan and given to men. It's actually a satanic construct. I'm going to show you where it finds its root from, but let me say something to you. It's so clever, it's so satanic, it's so demonic. It's a 360-degree programming device. When you read The Souls of Black Folk, I think chapter 13, the coin will drop. Let me say this to you. Up until 1925, 1930s, I hope you know that all over Europe and even in the United States to look the part. Faraday still put him into a cage next to orangutans and monkeys. Now you say, oh, it was just entertainment, they didn't mean evil. No, there was a sheer intelligence behind it. What I need to let you know today is this, that Otto Benga, by the way, ended up committing suicide because man was never meant to be dehumanized like that. But behind all of the so-called entertainment, you need to read that book, Black Grace, okay? Because all this stuff is in there. Now, behind all that, there's an intelligence running. Listen to me. Whether it was education, it was religion, whether it was entertainment, whether it was governance, you name it, there was a 360-degree engineering program to establish the black and the white color bar. It's not something that is real. It's a construct, it's a concept that is planted into the minds of men. Now, for instance, at the Bronx Zoo, in the days when Otto Benga, the African, was put into a cage alongside monkeys, there were about 40,000, they say, people who were thronging in daily to see the spectacle. They threw bananas at him and all that. Now, what you need to learn is this. It was a programming exercise. In that programming exercise, what they were doing was getting, quote, they were creating white folks. Now, a lot of people came in who were of Italian extraction, British extraction, Irish, German. Pervasive program has been executed and perfected over a few hundred years. Now, the truth is that you'd come to that fairground as a Briton or an American of British extraction, American of Italian extraction, but when you go to that cage and they say to you, that's a black man, they're telling you that you are a white man. And you see, you may have come to the exhibition ground as an American of one particular background or the other, as it were, but you go home racialized. And you didn't come there with that notion in your mind. Now, if you look at Darwin's theory of evolution, you'll find that in education, in science, all these tricks are there. If you remember Brown versus Board of Education, I'd like to remind you of what they call the black doll, white doll test that was, undertaken in America by, was it Professor, I remember his name right now. Remember, they conducted a black doll, white doll test. You see, you don't know what that is, go Google it, go find it out. Now, what they were able to prove is that the black-white construct is actually introduced into the minds of children. Because nobody comes into this world as black or white, like Archbishop Benson Idahosa mentioned. He went to God in prayer and said, why did you make me black? And God said, I didn't know you were black. Truth in God's earth is this, till today, there is neither black nor white. And that's why the Black Lives Movement, sooner or later, are going to realize that if you don't pitch your tent on truth, we will never really win. Now, we've been through this pain and sufferings for centuries, and now that we see the light at the end of the tunnel, this is not the time to make any tactical mistakes. Now, if only Because sometimes I wonder, because they do say to us that we Africans, men of African extraction, they claim that we're intuitive, we're emotive, they say we're incapable of critical thought, and they say all sorts of stuff about us. But you know what the truth is? It's all part of the program. One man who definitely beat that program was Martin Luther King Jr. And if you go and check the last book he wrote, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? Dr. King decoded that construct. And you'd find out that even though he had to deal with it in his time in America, because the construct had become so real in the minds of persons, that the American society, more or less till day after tomorrow, is structured on that black-white concept. Forgetting that when you study some other books, like The History of White People by some professor or the other, if you study that book, I think it was Nell Painter or something, she wrote a book, this African-American professor, The History of White Folks or something like that. You're going to find out that the definition of white, the color bar has been shifting regularly over the years. Now, what are we trying to say to you now is that the so-called white was not always white. There were times in history when Italians were not reckoned as whites. So now you need to understand that you're dealing with a construct. And you ask yourself, how could this thing have been so successful? First of all, it was introduced to legitimize the human slave trade. More so when they discovered that the man of color, the man of African extraction, could endure greater hardships than others in the cotton fields, in the slave fields. Now watch this. You go read another book that was published in 1933 by the second African American who got a doctorate from Harvard University. The book is titled The Miseducation of the Negro. The Miseducation of the Negro. Carter G. Woodson is his name. But listen to me, when I read those books, I saw that both Carter G. Woodson and what's his name again? W.E.B. Du Bois, who wrote The Souls of Black Folk, thought they were talking about an all-American affair. This is the interesting thing today. They do say about us that if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in the book. Because we've been conditioned and programmed not to read. You say, is that possible? Go read up Pavlov. I'm just going to make some references, the Russian scientist. Read on classical conditioning. Yes, you can condition human beings. Yes, if you have an audacious program and you plan for it to last for a few thousand years and you know how to do it, you can create black people and you can create white persons. And that's why you can find out that no matter what we do in America till day after tomorrow, Black Lives Movement and all the gains and stuff, until we understand the secrets of programming and learn how to deconstruct a program, everything that's going on right now is never going to amount to much. Because you see, programming is not something that's on the outside. Legislation cannot take care of programming. It's just one of the units. Programming has to do with learning how to take a man apart on the inside and put him back again. And that exactly is what has happened. So let me say this to you because I want to talk solution. You need to read those books that I pointed out to you. Black Grace is a book, I think it's online on Amazon. It's a wonderful book. It will give you all the information you need on how this construct, how this program. Remember I mentioned to you that there was a program, CNN ran something a few years ago, Black in America. And if you learn and understand programming and read between the lines, there was a mocking tonality behind the entire program. I said to you, Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas, the ruling in the Supreme Court, I think 1950, what was that, in America? Desegregated education and drew a conclusion. And you remember I said to you that part of the evidence that was convincing that was presented was the black doll, white doll test. All that did was to show you that children are not born with the concept of black and white. It's society that introduces it. Now, guess what, America? America needs to learn that that program was not even written in America. If you go read the Lynch letters, okay, and go back to Virginia and dig around a little bit, you'll find out that it was imported from Europe. Now, not only from Europe, but even the Arab world understands it. There was this ancient Arab philosopher as well. If you read his works, you'll find out the elements of this program. The Zan was that they used to describe blacks. Said they were good for nothing but slavery. So it's a program, it's a construct. You cannot deconstruct a man from the outside. No matter what you do in America today, let me say this to you, if we allow this issue to be carried on the back of the Black Lives Matter organization, we will ultimately lose because there are really no blacks and no whites. We cannot build a lie, and the more you fight a lie with anything else but truth, the more you strengthen that lie or that stronghold. In a few minutes, I'm going to round this up, but I want to tell you what I believe the solution is, and something that's really helped me. I'm talking practical now. Now, I don't know how I missed it, but I just recently watched a film called Harriet. I almost couldn't watch that film, but Harriet Tubman, one of the heroes, of course, and brought understanding to her life. So I'm going to say to you that no matter what books we read, there's one more book that's going to be very important for us to read to be able to decode the black and white construct and the programming elements and how police officers are not programmed to be black and white. It's society that programs them to be black and white. And you got to find out it runs so deep, it's so sublime, it's been perfected so well that it's still difficult today to detect that program. Now that's why I started out by saying this journey can take 40 years or it can take 40 days. If we want this journey to just be 40 days, want to beat this whole thing, I'm going to say to you, we have been programmed to be black and white. And I'll tell you something, that program is very funny because lots of folks who are classified as blacks in America, if you cross over to Africa, you'll be classified as white. So what am I saying now? When you watch Harriet, you're going to discover that this whole construct is in the Bible. That's why the book says, read me. The solution to decode this entire construct is out there in the Bible. In the Bible, it is introduced as the mark of the beast. Now, what does this mean? It means that what you think is black and white is just a substitution for a very predatory construct. The black is the white is the predator. The black, listen to this, is the one that is poor, the white is rich. White is the victor, black is the loser. And you can just go on. But you know what the truth is? In God's reality, there is neither black nor white. It's a construct. And the construct is right here. And that's why Woodson G. Carter said something. He said, if you can get to control a man's thoughts and his thinking, you would never need to order him to go to the back of the room. Once you've got him to accept his inferiority in here, mentally, he'll find his way to the back of the room and he'll know not to use the front door. And if there's no back door, he'll create one for himself. Because in that film, Harriet, there's a prophetic play of the solution. Instead of 40 years, we can resolve this in 40 days. Now, in Nigeria, we had this prophet of the Lord who was, quote, white, S.G. Alty, who helped us to appreciate the gospel of the kingdom and to get away from religion. He helped us to see that the Bible was not really a religious book, it was a spiritual book. He said something about Nigeria. He singled Nigeria out of the African nations, that God had a prophetic role for the end times for Nigeria. Now, this prophetic role is that it is Nigeria that's going to supply the code to deconstruct that program that creates black and white. And we've done that already. It's available in Nigeria. You want to find out about it, you want to know about it, you just get in touch with me, and then we'll see what we can do working together. Now, in that film, something funny happened. The lead role, when that film was supposed to be produced in the 30s, the real lead role was supposed to be taken up by, what, quote, a white woman. And the executives in Hollywood said, look, nobody's going to know the difference. They were going to do a film on Harriet Tubman and picture the heroine as a white woman helping blacks to escape slavery, which just was not true. Now, let me show you how powerful that program is. Okay? You're going to say, oh, that can't happen now. It doesn't matter none. Now, watch this. When this film was going to be aired, or when it was going to be cast, it so happened that the person who won the lead role for Harriet was taking from African American actors. And when I heard that, it hurt me a little bit for a little while. But when I looked at the program, I realized that the program is still alive and well, undetected. As a matter of fact, he played a role in another film, Django, if you remember the film Django. Now, the role that he played in that film, Django, describes exactly the program, and part of what the program does is that it makes us fight one another. The lighter colored man of African extraction is going to feel superior to the one who's darker skinned and all that. And even the African American today is hating on the African, not realizing that it was never so from the beginning. When you read that Bible, you're going to find out that it was Satan who put that construct together, and then using man established human slavery. Because if he hadn't done that 360-degree engineering to make folks on both sides of the bar accept slavery, the program would never have succeeded. And that's why whether you turn to entertainment, you turn to education, in governance, anywhere you turn to, this sublime, brilliant, arcane, and evil program is running under the surface. Now, to resolve it, we're going to have to discover something. The prophetic countdown. And this is why in Hollywood, you see people like David Oyelowo. He's also of Nigerian extraction. God is saying something. Nigeria is going to present all men all over the world. Whether you're in America, you're in Europe, you're in Cuba, don't matter where you're at, but there's something, a wisdom, a divine coming out of Nigeria. And when all persons of African extraction find this, it will heal our wounds. We will locate who the real enemy is. We will break down all barriers. We'll begin to see God's reality and discover that a Filipino cannot be a white person. We're going to find out that an Indian is neither black nor white. And when we deconstruct this, we're going to find out that it is satanic. It is a predator-prey narrative. It was created for some to get richer at the expense of others, for some to dominate others. It is something that God hates. And let me close by saying this to you quickly. You're going to find out that Malcolm X sort of stumbled on some of these things. And he used to say that, look, why would anybody leave his own nation, cross the whole world, and hijack young people? And when you watch that film, Harriet, this is the first time I have seen a proper portrayal of, quote, people who have become white. Now, take note, nobody's born white. Nobody's born black. But people are conditioned to become white or black in their thinking. Now, in that film, I tell you that film is not going to fly, is because, listen, Dr. King, he was talking about white privilege. He said, look, these folks have always talked about the black problem, but there is a white problem. Dr. King, Martin Luther King spoke about this. Nobody has really followed up on it. But I tell you something, he was right on the money. And if we want to make this journey in 40 days instead of 40 years, we need to look to stand on the truth, just like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to embrace the Black Power salute because he knew he wasn't standing on truth. In the same way today, we want to make progress. We want this world to be what God designed it to be. We're going to take this wisdom out of Nigeria. And I'm going to tell you something. If you go to the colleges of this world, education is rendered in black and white. And we're going to have to take this truth from God's word and throw it into the system. Whether it's entertainment, whether it's education, whether it's family, whether it's governance, no matter what it is, we want to remind people that God is the first programmer. And if anybody knows how to write a program and knows how to deconstruct a program, it's the Almighty God. And He has given us a book that has the secret how to deconstruct programs. It's one thing to get the Israelite or the Hebrew out of Egypt. It's another thing altogether to get the Egypt out of the heart of the Hebrew. And I'm saying to you that how many million? 3.5 million left the promised land. God, as powerful as He is, without the cooperation of men, could not deconstruct the inferiority program in the Hebrews successfully. Only about 2 of them who left slavery in Egypt ever made it to the promised land. The rest could not, because they refused to be pointing fingers at each other and pummeling each other while the program is still working. Listen to me. Our brother who was killed by the white policeman was killed because that policeman was programmed to be white. And I'm saying something to you, even in the high places, the corridors of power all over the world, this black and white construct has been put. He got the inspiration from William J. Seymour, Azusa. Azusa lasted only 3 years, 1906 to 1909. But whatever I said to you here right now, the inspiration of it, the spiritual aspect of it, was in Azusa. So any genuine believer who cannot see the poison that was poured into the Pentecostal move from the beginning plans to spend 40 years wandering in the wilderness. But if you can come on to what I'm saying here, whether it's you're taking from the biblical perspective or just the pragmatic aspect of programming, trust me, we can do this thing in 40 days instead of 40 years. Next time you see a policeman looking at you like mean, please don't blame him. Right from a very young age, his family, his society, his community, and the world that was created by more brilliant minds than his own began indoctrinating to be like that. And there are many of us who've been programmed to be black, even though we are not black, and it's the same thing. And let me close with this statement. The worst thing that can happen to anybody on the face of this earth today is to be born, listen to this, into a white family. And the second worst thing that can happen to anybody on the face of this earth is to be born into a black family. You know why? Because the kingdom of God and heaven has no room for black people or white people. So if you are unfortunate to be indoctrinated, no matter how much church you go, trust me, you are not going to make the kingdom of heaven. You're not going to be there. You know why? Satan's last card is the mark of the beast. So if you have been conditioned, no matter how cleverly, to be a predator, or you've been conditioned to be prey, it don't matter none. Predator, prey, neither is a man. Okay? So we'll talk some more about all these things later. There's so much. I mean, go find out about the Tertium Quid. Go read up all those books. And let's make this journey 40 days.